Stevens finally cracked. For the first time in 5 years since he'd met Melanie, something inside him gave way and he let the anger out. "What, you don't want to see me? Tired of me?" His words tumbled, sharp and raw. She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. Silence had been his companion for years, an unbearable, echoing hush that made the world feel too large and too empty all at once. He stood over her photograph like a man pleading with memory. "You call me, you beckon, and when I come, you're mute. What else do you want from me?" The words fell flat. Melanie's eyes in the picture seemed to look right through him, not with blame, but with something colder and more unknowable. For a moment, Stephen thought he saw a smile flicker across that glossy face. He blinked, certain he'd imagined it. A small voice interrupted him, bright as a bell and utterly out of place in the hush of the cemetery. "Who are you?" it asked. Startled, Stephen turned. A little girl stood there, no more than 7, cheeks flushed, speaking with a soft, clipped cadence like a child who'd just lost her baby teeth. She held a piece of candy in one hand. "And what are you doing here?" he asked, scanning for a guardian. No adult in sight. "Eating candy, talking to it," she said plainly, and then pointed at the photograph on the headstone. "Who's that?" "Melanie." The one-word answer lodged in his throat. "My fiancée," he said, more to himself than to the child. The girl cocked her head. She looked like she belonged to the world of small, fierce truths. "She smiled at me once," she announced. "She doesn't like cookies. She only likes berries." The absurdity of the detail, the certainty in a kid's voice about the preferences of a dead woman pressed at him with a strange tenderness. Stephen felt an urge to take the girl by the hand and lead her away, to give her to someone with a steady home, to a shelter, to anyone who could keep her from standing on the edge of dusk, nibbling candy left on graves. "What about your parents?" he asked. "Mom's sleeping. Dad left last week," she said without drama. "If you have cookies, give me. She doesn't like them." She pointed again at the photo. There was something about the girl's way of watching the picture, an intimacy that suggested she'd been visiting the grave often. "What's your name?" Stephen asked. "Zoe," she said. "I like to imagine things. Sometimes I see people. You come on Fridays. You never talk to her." Guilt rose in him like a tide. For 3 years, he'd lived as if the world had been reduced to the gray tomb of that apartment, to the small rituals Melanie once embroidered into everyday life. She had been the quiet center, the one who made insignificant things matter, who transformed a room with a misplaced trinket or a sprig of wildflower. His life had narrowed to work, to meetings, to late nights at a desk where he ate at the keyboard. People joked, "No pets, no kids, that's why he's always here." It wasn't a joke for him. It was survival. "And why is she dead?" Zoe asked, blunt and unapologetic. "Cancer," Stephen said shortly. It was easier than explaining the long, clumsy, selfish things that had happened before. She was beautiful. She made everything better. Zoe's small face pinched. "I sometimes think she's mad at me for not coming. She calls me in my sleep. She's been calling 3 nights in a row." That nailed him, the stupid, private confession, the thing he never let himself admit. He had been called, and he had not answered. "I can't keep coming here," he said suddenly, the words spilling out. "I leave for work, for 2 months, or more." The girl frowned. "Will someone come? Will you take care of the flowers?" He found himself making a clumsy offer right there beside the cold stone. Could you help me? Keep the place tidy? I've got some seeds, some pots. I don't know how to plant anything." She agreed with the solemnity of a pact. In 4 hands they cleared weeds and dug shallow rows along the edge of the grave. She corrected him with the confidence of someone born to instruct. He left her money for candy and bread and a stupid little salary she insisted on tucking into a tiny purse, and with a ridiculous flutter of hope,
he promised to come back. The departure that was meant to be 2 months lengthened into 4. Work swallowed him. The new project demanded all the appetite he had left, yet the image of Zoe, eyes like a bell's spark, kept threading through his days. He began to dream with color again. Melanie in a long white dress crowned with flowers, walking through a field with his hand in hers, and Zoe skipping between them, a small heartbeat of joy. Then the sky would tear open, wind would wrench Melanie from him, and the dream would become a scramble to save Zoe from some black thing racing towards her. Those nightmares pushed him to action. From the plane, he went straight to social services. He asked questions, filled out forms, and then ran into the gray language of bureaucracy and skepticism. A stranger asking about a child? The woman made, with the practiced dryness of someone who had seen too many dramas. You'll need documents, permissions. It's not that simple. The answer was a wall. But fortune, or Melody's ghostly nudging, kept pushing. The woman at child welfare remembered the fire 3 weeks before and the neighbor who'd poured gasoline on the house. She remembered Zoe, who'd been seen at the cemetery in her threadbare coat. Maybe you should gather papers, the woman said with an arched brow. Then softer, you did the right thing bringing her some help. Paperwork dragged out like winter. Every step felt like a test. He pressed on because the alternative materialized in impossible images. Zoe, alone, learning to steal to eat. He imagined Melanie watching and smiling sadly, imploring him to do what he could. A year later, a life of small mercies had taken shape. Stephen married a gentle woman who had once been Zoe's caregiver, kind, patient, versed in the ordinary tasks that stitch broken things back together. Together, they adopted Zoe. On the night their little family signed the papers, Melanie visited his dreams one last time. She stood in that field, as before, but now her smile was quiet and complete. She took a step back, nodded, and for the first time in 3 years, the heaviness inside Stephen eased. Zoe grew up with more candy than she probably deserved and something steadier than luck. A home, a father who had learned how to be present, and a woman who knew how to make a house into a refuge. Once, long after the papers were signed and the flowers planted properly, Stephen walked past Melanie's grave. He paused, smoothed his hand over the stone, and felt, absurdly, gratefully, that the photograph might just have been smiling.